1. About yourself. Exam focus. Thinking about the IELTS practice test. Exercise 1, page 18. Candidate A.
Good morning, I'm Carol Smith. Can you tell me your full name, please?
My name's Maria Sanchez.
And what shall I call you?
Maria.
And can you tell me where you are from?
Spain.
Can I see your identification, please? Thank you, that's fine. Now, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about your hometown. Tell me about where you live in Spain.
I live in an apartment in Valencia.
And what kind of place is it?
It's a big place with many people and very busy.
And what do you do in the evenings in Valencia?
In the evenings, Valencia has many shops and I go with friends, and Valencia has many restaurants.
Would you like to live in another place in Spain?
No, Valencia is best, and I like Valencia people.
Why?
My family is in Valencia, and Valencia people are good neighbors.
Okay, so let's move on to talk about learning English. How long have you been learning English?
How long? 4 years.
And when do you use your English?
I speak English with some friends, and I use English with computers.
And do you speak any other languages?
Candidate B.
Good morning. I'm Stephen Jones. Can you tell me your full name, please?
My name's Indira Patel.
And can you tell me where you are from, Indira?
I'm from Delhi.
Can I see your identification, please? Thank you, that's fine. Now, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about what you do. Do you work, or are you a student?
I'm a student in high school, but I'm finishing this year. I have my final exams in June.
And what subjects are you studying?
A mixture. I'm studying for my high school diploma, which means I have to choose 5 subjects. I study 3 compulsory subjects: maths, literature, and science. And I choose another 2. I'm doing English and history.
Do you enjoy those subjects?
I do, actually. English, because I love learning new words. And I love listening to English radio, and history is just fascinating. Finding out about the history of my parents' and grandparents' generations is what I enjoy most.
And what are your plans for the future?
Do you mean for my studies or my career?
Your studies.
I'm not sure. I think I'd like to do a degree abroad, but it depends on my brother. He's studying in Canada at the moment, and if he stays, I'll go and join him. But I'm sure that I want to study economic history.
Okay, so let's move on to talk about your free time. Now, what do you do?
Unit 2, Travelling. Vocabulary focus. Exercise 2, page 20. 1.
This place is where they check if you are bringing in too many cigarettes or illegal goods of any kind. You go through it at the end of your journey, usually, after you've landed at your destination. It's called customs. That's CUSTOMS.
2.
This is where they check to see if your passport is in order, if you've got the right visa, and that kind of thing. It's called passport control. That's PASSPORTCONTROL.
3.
This is the gate. That's GATE. It's where you queue up to board your plane.
4.
This is the check-in desk. It's where you show your ticket to the airline staff and you hand over your luggage. Then they give you your boarding card. So, that's the check-in desk. CHECK. I-N-D-E-S-K.
5.
This can take a long time. It's where they put your clothes and hand luggage and you yourself through an X-ray machine to make sure you're not carrying bombs or guns. It's called security. S-E-C-U-R-I-T-Y.
6.
You can go to this place just to look around or to buy something. It's a kind of shop, and it's called duty-free. You can buy things there without paying tax. That's D-U-T-Y-F-R-E-E.
7.
This bit is exciting if you like flying. It's called takeoff. T-A-K-E-O-F-F. And it's when your plane gets off the ground and goes up in the air.
8.
This place is where you sit and wait for your flight to board. It's the departure lounge. That's D-E-P-A-R-T-U-R-E-L-O-U-N-G-E.
Exercise 5B, page 21. 1,
Check-in desk.
2,
Passport control.
3,
X-ray machine.
4,
Customs.
5,
Security.
6,
Duty-free.
7,
Departure.
8.
To check in.
Exercise 5C, page 21.
Passport. Visa. Luggage. Hand luggage. Departure gate. To land. To take off. To go through. Boarding pass.
Skills focus. Exercise 1, page 23.
I'm not sure. Just let me check on my ticket. It's in the afternoon. Oh yes, I remember. 3:30.
Exercise 2, page 23. Extract 1.
I'm going to stop off on the way to meet up with some friends and family, so I'm not flying direct. But I'm actually going to Sydney, so that'll be my last stop.
Extract 2.
It's a fast train and doesn't stop anywhere on the way, so it should be on time. It should get in at 19:05.
Extract 3.
No, I'm coming back too, but next week. Not today, so I think I'll need an open return ticket.
Extract 4.
I'd go somewhere quiet if I were you. It'll be cheaper too if you go out of town. Why don't you try Bramhill? It's a little village just outside Boston.
Extract 5.
Yes, that's right. It's part of London, South London, I think. It's called Putney. That's P-U-T-N-E-Y.
Exercise 3, page 23. A.
14.
B.
I need some new sheets.
C.
Further.
D.
H-A-R-S-T-O-N.
E.
60.
F.
It is seen.
G.
The shop is close.
H.
I sometimes walked to work.
Exercise 6, page 23.
Here are 6 names from all over the world. Write them down. Pensri. P-E-N-S-R-I. This is a Thai girl's name which means the goodness and beauty of the moon. Philip. P-H-I-L-I-P. This is a British or American boy's name. Many southern European countries have similar names to this. And now here's a Russian girl's name. Ignatevskaya. That's I-G-N-A-T-E-V-S-K-A-I-A. This next one is a common girl's name in Arab countries. It's F-A-T-I-M-A. That's Fatima. Now this is a difficult one. It's an Indian girl's name. Akanksha. A or double A, then K-A-N-K-S-H-A. It means wish or desire. And our last name. This time it's a Japanese girl's name. It's Hiroko. That's H-I-R-O-K-O, and it means generous. Now for 6 sums. Please write the numbers down, then add them up. Then I'll give you the answers. 1. 9 plus 17 equals 2. 36 plus 29 equals 3. 287 plus 16 equals 4. 6,825 plus 14 equals 5. 60 plus 320 equals 6. 78,573 plus 97 equals 'And now for the answers. The answer to number 1 is 26. The answer to number 2 is 65. And for number 3, it's 303. The answer to number 4 is 6,839. To number 5 is 380. And for the last one, number 6, the answer is 78,670. Did you get them all right?
Exam Focus, IELTS Practice Test. Pages 27 and 28. You will hear 2 friends, Tina and Jack, talking about a purse lost in an airport.
Oh, Jack! Thank goodness you're here. I just didn't know what to do.
Well, are you all right? What happened?
Yeah, I guess I'm all right. But I've just had my purse with everything in it stolen.
Look, I've bought you a drink. This coffee here. Drink it. It'll make you feel better. Now come on, let's sit down here in the cafe. Then you can tell me what happened.
Thanks. That tastes good.
Well, I'd just come through passport control and went into the luggage hall to pick up my luggage. I was just standing by a desk to sort out all my papers. You know, I had my passport, my visa, a bit of paper with the address of where I'm staying, all that stuff in my hands. As I put it all back in my bag, this tall man with his wife went past me and sort of bumped into me. But I didn't think anything of it, because that's not unusual when you're waiting for your luggage.
So how do you know it happened in the luggage hall?
Well, after I picked up my luggage, I went through customs and into the arrivals hall. And when I got there, I went to that mini market over there to buy some stuff. And it was then I noticed, when I wanted to pay, that my purse just wasn't there. I'd wanted to buy some water. You know, I had some juice and an orange with me, but I was just really thirsty. Anyway, it wasn't in any of my bags, so I thought I'd just dropped it. So I went back through the arrivals hall to look for it. And I wanted to go back into the luggage place, but they wouldn't let me through.
Right, well, we must contact your bank. But what makes you so certain it was that tall guy? Maybe you just dropped it and someone's picked it up and handed it in to the police.
No, Jack, I'm sure it was him. The more I think about it, the more I think he'd been watching me for a while. I'd noticed him on the plane, you see, because he kept talking on his mobile really loudly just after we landed. His wife did too.
Have you been to the police?
No, not yet. I just came straight to the cafe to find you. I just don't understand how he did it.
What did the purse have in it?
Everything. That's the problem. Well, not quite everything. I've still got my passport and my visa, but my credit cards have gone, and $300 in cash. Fortunately, I'd just put my English money into my pocket, and my plane ticket too, so I've still got them.
Can you remember what he looked like?
Well, he was tall, with quite long blonde hair. He must have been around 35, and I think he was wearing a leather jacket. And his wife was quite short, younger than him. Probably around 20, with short dark hair. She was sort of medium build. But what I noticed about her was that she was actually using 2 mobile phones. Oh no!
What? What's the matter?
Look! That's them! There! Coming towards us!
Oh, thank goodness I found you!
What do you mean?
Look, is this your purse? I found it on the plane and I've been looking for you ever since.
Oh no! Yes, it is mine! Thank you so much. Look, can I buy you a drink?
Unit 5, Education. Vocabulary Focus. Exercise 3, page 59.
Notice boards. Career counsellors. Attendance registers. Photocopiers. Whiteboards. Reference sections. Stage lighting. Test tubes. Exercise machines. Work stations. Vending machines. Changing rooms.
Skills Focus. Exercise 5, page 61. Example 1.
The food in my school canteen was terrible. We always had to queue, so by the time you were served, everything was cold. I say everything, but there was never any choice. It was always chicken on Monday, and every day there was a watery soup. Or perhaps it was soupy water. But the worst thing was the smell. It was awful.
Compare.
It always smelled like they were boiling cabbage, even though cabbage was never on the menu.
Example 2.
I think school uniforms are a good idea for many reasons. I think children work harder and are not so distracted when they wear uniforms. It also means parents don't argue with their children about what to buy for school or wear to school. They help prevent bullying.
Clarify.
I mean, if children wear the same thing to school, other children can't make fun of them because of their clothes.
Exam focus. Thinking about the IELTS practice test. Exercises 1 and 2, pages 66 and 67.
Now I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
I'd like you to describe a teacher that you had at school who was special to you.
Okay. I would like to tell you about my teacher, Mrs. Kearney, who was my first English teacher. Mrs. Kearney was my English teacher when I was at Rodriguez Primary School, which was in San Sebastian, a town near my village. We started English in the 3rd year of primary school. I was 8 at the time. I remember how excited we were before our first lesson. Everyone was saying everything they had heard in English. It was like the class were going to the circus or something. You see, Mrs. Kearney wasn't just a new teacher. She was more like a new experience. She was the first foreigner some of us had ever seen, and the first one we'd ever spoken to. She was a fantastic teacher, too. She taught us words with puppets and made us laugh all the time. She couldn't speak Spanish, so everything we did was in English. For instance, she used to take the register and ask us how we spelt one of our names. It was fantastic that we could all say things in English after only a few weeks. She used to make English cakes and biscuits sometimes and bring them to class, and we wrote down the recipes and had to try them at home. I suppose children do that in English schools, but for us it was something new. Anyway, Mrs. Kearney was my teacher for 2 years, then she left the school. I think she was an exchange teacher. That's why she had to leave. She was a special teacher. Basically, she made me love English, and I'll always remember her for that.
Thank you. Now, we've been talking about teaching and learning, and I'd like you to continue on to the next.
Unit 6, Accommodation, Vocabulary Focus. Exercise 4B, page 69. 1,
Accommodation.
2,
Bedsit.
3,
Microwave.
4,
Shelves.
5,
Cooker.
6.
Dormitory.
Exercise 4C, page 69. 1,
Vacuum cleaner.
2,
Washing machine.
3,
Television.
4,
Iron.
5,
Air conditioning.
6,
Wardrobe.
7,
Telephone.
8,
Fridge.
9,
Hall of residence.
10.
Canteen.
Skills Focus, Exercises 3 and 4, page 71. Extract 1.
My landlord comes on Sundays to collect the rent. It's really quite expensive. I have to give him $60 each time.
Extract 2.
Okay, so that's everything. Oh, what time is supper?
Well, it's 7:25 now, so supper will be in 5 minutes.
Extract 3.
I'd like to live by myself, but I wouldn't like to have to cook my own meals or do my own cleaning, so maybe a hall is best for me.
Extract 4.
It's a really useful book. It really helped me understand what I need to do to live here and make the most of it. You should read it too. It's called Living in Australia.
Extract 5.
It's DONATELLA.
Exercise 5, page 72. 1,
It's unfurnished.
2,
He thinks his flat is horrible.
3,
It's quite small.
4,
In the suburbs.
5.
On Tuesday.
Exercise 6, page 72. Listen to the recording and tick which of the two sentences the speaker says. Listen carefully.
I'd love to change room. I'd prefer to share accommodation. I would have gone by then. How did you do it? She always came on Tuesdays. It's funny, isn't it? They couldn't understand the language. This is an aim which is important. He's looking for a big and comfortable chair.
Exercise 7, page 72. You will hear a renting agent talking about 3 kinds of accommodation for rent.
Yeah, I've got 3 places available. The first is just a bed. You'd be sharing with other people in a dormitory, but there's a kitchen and bathroom too, of course, which are equipped. It's got a cooker, a fridge, a table, things like that. And it's here in the centre of town. It's quite cheap at $20 a week. The second is more comfortable. It's a 1-bedroom flat in Oxley. That's on the edge of town, but on a good bus route. It's got full kitchen equipment and a bed, a desk, a cooker and all those things. But at $60 a week, it's not cheap. The last place is in a hall. It's just near the college, on the left of the library. What's good about it is that it's got a canteen where you can eat and also a lounge where you can watch television. All the rooms are furnished and you'd need to pay $220 a month.
Exam focus. IELTS practice test, page 76. You will hear a college accommodation officer leaving a telephone message for a student.
Hello? Yes? This is a message from the Willfield College Accommodation Office for Amir Sikder. I'm calling to reply to the call you made on Thursday. First of all, your student details. Could you please confirm that these are right, as I can't find your record on our computer? The details we have are that you're coming up next term for your first year, and you'll be studying sports science. Is that right? And your student number is 07-26523-921. You need to confirm these, as I can't do anything about accommodation for you until you're properly registered on our system. Now, you say you'd like a room in Midland Hall and ask for details about it. Well, Midland is a new hall, quite near the university. There's a good bus service, but most students bike it or go on foot. In the way of facilities, well, there's a laundrette, then there's a restaurant where you can get very good, cheap meals, a common room where you can meet up with your friends, watch TV, whatever, and a small shop where you can buy the small daily things you might need. As for the rooms themselves, well, you'd have a room to yourself, so a single. There are no doubles, so you wouldn't have to share with anyone, but you'd have to share the bathroom. There's no ensuite bathrooms. And the rent is... yes, it's £3,000 for 40 weeks, which includes everything. Room, meals, electricity, heating, everything. There's no extras. But the best thing for you to do is have a look on our website, which is www.accom@wellfield.edu.org. That's 2 C's, 2 M's and 2 L's. It'll give you all these details, and there are some photos too. We do still have a couple of rooms available, but only 3. So if you want one, you need to move quickly and fill in an application form and get it to me fast. You can do that from the website. Right, I think that's everything. Just give me a ring if you have any more queries. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Unit 7, Gadgets. Vocabulary Focus. Exercise 7, page 79. Listen and repeat.
Remote control. Laptop. Mobile phone. PDA. MP3 player. DVD player. Playing video games. Sending emails. Uploading material. Browsing the internet. Text messaging. Social networking. Gaming. Phoning. Exciting. Boring. Interesting. Confusing. Tiring. Frustrating. Fascinating. Inspiring. Relaxing.
Exercise 8, page 79. Answer these quiz questions. 1.
What do you call a phone that you can carry round with you?
2.
What's the opposite of confusing?
3.
If something takes away your energy, you can say it's...
4.
Is it possible to switch on an email?
5.
Which can you turn down, a calculator or a DVD player?
6.
Is a remote control exciting or useful?
7.
What preposition follows bored?
8.
This begins with F. If something is annoying or you just can't do it, we say it's...
9.
What's the opposite of turn off?
10.
What preposition do you use with tired?
Unit 9. Free time and entertainment. Skills focus. Exercise 6, page 108. 1.
Things are changing, though.
2.
I suppose I just don't really have a routine.
3.
Perhaps university will be different.
4.
That's what most of my friends do, at least.
5.
Maybe I'll join a gym or something. I'll see.
6.
Anyway, I can relax when exams are over.
Grammar focus. Exercise 4, page 110. 1.
Would you like to do more sport?
I wish I could.
2.
Are you going anywhere this weekend?
I hope I am.
3.
Does the government help students financially?
I wish it would.
4.
Are things going to get better?
I hope so.
5.
Do you think the situation will get worse?
I hope it doesn't.
6.
Do people need money to enjoy their leisure time?
I wish they didn't, but they do.
7.
Do you go out every weekend?
If only I could, but I can't afford to.
8.
How would you ideally like to spend your free time?
I just wish I had more free time.
Exam focus. Thinking about the IELTS practice test. Exercises 1 and 2, page 113. We've been talking about leisure time, and I'd like to ask you 1 or 2 more general questions on this topic. First, let's consider the relationship between work and free time. In your country, how do people typically relax after work?
Well, it depends. I think, generally speaking, people go home, eat with their family and watch TV. And that's it. That's all they do. But at some times of the year, especially in summer and autumn, we have lots of traditional festivals and then people will go out until very late into the night.
Tell me about these festivals.
The main ones are in summer, when we harvest wheat and apples. We have more facilities to make festival then, so that more to do. As a fair or a circus or a concert with traditional dancing. I enjoy these things very much.
And how easy is it to get a good balance between work and free time?
It's not. Personally speaking, at least. I have to travel 2 hours to work and 2 hours home again. So after working and commuting, all I want to do is rest. But it is important to do things at outwork days.
Why is that?
It's about being active, both physically and mentally. Everybody needs to do things that stimulate and challenge them. For example, I go hiking a lot, which is a good way to keep fit and to socialize.
Unit 10, Jobs. Vocabulary focus. Exercise 6, page 115. 1.
Travel agent.
2.
Air hostess.
3.
Cook.
4.
Designer.
5.
Builder.
6.
Engineer.
7.
Journalist.
8.
Laborer.
9.
Mechanic.
10.
Nurse.
11.
Porter.
12.
Programmer.
13.
Barman.
14.
Sales assistant.
15.
Driver.
16.
Waiter.
Exercise 7, page 116. 1.
Nursing.
2.
Engineer.
3.
Travel agency.
4.
Security guard.
5.
Building.
6.
Designer.
7.
Secretary.
8.
Journalism.
9.
Cleaner.
10.
Waiter.
11.
Cooking.
12.
Program.
Exercise 8, page 116. Write your answers to these questions. 1. What's the name of the person who makes the meals in a restaurant? 2. In which area of work do people teach and look after children? 3. This job area is concerned with recording a firm's profits, expenses and losses. What is it? 4. Someone who helps do heavy physical work, like carrying things around, is a... 5. What do you call someone who brings you the menu and your food in a restaurant? 6. What's the area of work that deals with computers? 7. People who provide entertainment or sporting activities are involved in the area of... 8. What's the name of the job which involves repairing or working with machines? 9. Someone who types up letters and organises their boss's correspondence, meetings and timetable is a... 10. Which job area deals with making sure firms have enough suitably qualified people on their staff? Now, spell your answers to another student. Skills Focus. Exercise 1, page 117. 1.
I suppose it's all right, really. But I do get fed up with doing the same thing every day.
2.
I'm always doing something different, and they're all things that really make me think and challenge me. It's great.
3.
I've got to finish all of these, then I need to go through all of those over there. It should take me another couple of hours.
4.
Honestly, I keep telling her that I've got too much work and she never listens. In fact, she just keeps giving me more.
5.
No, I can manage it easily. Don't worry, it's not a problem. I'll bring you the results tomorrow morning.
6.
Do you think you could help me? The thing is that I need to get it finished really quick, and I'm just not sure how to go about it. Oh, help. I really don't want to lose this job.
Exercise 2, page 117. 1.
It's a job in a restaurant kitchen, helping the chef.
2. It's a job in a restaurant kitchen, helping the chef? 3.
It's a job in a restaurant kitchen, helping the chef.
4.
It's a job in a restaurant kitchen helping the chef.
5.
It's a job in a restaurant kitchen helping the chef.
Exercise 3, page 117.
It's the best job I've had in a long time.
But you'll need to start really early in the morning, at 6 o'clock.
Your salary can go up or down. It depends on how many customers you get.
The job's all about working with customers, not paperwork or organising things.
I suppose you need to be energetic, fit, and extrovert. You're always dealing with people.
Jan's the boss. She's quite strict and watches what you do all the time.
Exercise 4, page 118.
He works in a language school, organising social events for the students.
Exercise 5, page 118.
Before I got this job, I had to go through a long application process. First, I had to submit an application form and a CV. Then I had to go to an interview. I was so nervous at the interview because there were these 4 people all asking me questions at the same time. I really thought I hadn't got the job, but I must have done something right because they rang me the next day and they told me I'd got the job. Then they sent me an email saying the same thing, that I'd got the job and wanted me to start the next week. Wow!
Exam Focus, IELTS Practice Test, page 122. You will hear a conversation between 2 students, David and Paula, about using PowerPoint to give presentations.
I've got to give a presentation next week. I've never given one at college before.
Oh, yeah? What's it for?
My building course. The thing I'm doing in the evenings for my job. It's really useful for the job, but I don't feel very confident about giving a presentation.
Right. I gave my first last week. It was about first aid. But I don't think it went very well, though. I think I used PowerPoint really badly.
Why? What did you do?
Well, I wrote nearly all of the presentation up on the slides. And I just read from them. And I noticed everyone getting really bored.
Yeah, I've heard that. They say you should only write 2 lines on each slide. A summary of your main points, really. And you talk about these from notes. Sounds easy, but I'm not so sure.
Something else I did wrong too, I think, was maybe I used too much animation. It's just such fun doing all these effects. You know, the sounds and the graphics. But my tutor told me I'd overdone it, and again I noticed that everyone started laughing after a bit. At first I thought that meant they were enjoying the presentation, but I suspect they just thought it was a bit silly. In fact, it was all a bit embarrassing. And what's worse, I've got to give another one next week.
Well, let's work out some golden rules together.
Yeah, good idea. So no more than 2 lines on each slide and keep the animation to a minimum.
Something else about the look of it. I think you shouldn't use too many colors or fonts. That's what they always told us at school anyway.
That's probably good advice. Keep them simple. They probably distract the audience, so they don't get your main message. The same must be true for the background. I used a fantastic one of the Great Wall of China that I found on the internet. It showed this wonderful high wall running across this mountainous countryside. It was really strong. But I guess it didn't have much to do with my job as a nurse or first aid. It's true. And the shapes of the mountaintops made the text look unclear.
Yep, I think they told us that at school too. Use a light-colored background on a dark-colored text, or vice versa, and use the same background on all the slides. And like you said, keep it all simple. In fact, thinking about it, I can remember quite a lot of what they told us at school.
I didn't do any of that at school. We did use PowerPoint, but we were never taught how to. I remember sitting through some dreadful presentations. You know, when people stand in front of the screen, or forget to talk, and just show the slides, or put their back to the audience because they're too frightened to look at anyone. Body language is really important. Things like where you stand, how you use gestures, and making eye contact. You need to realize how you're using these things and make good use of them. But there were some good presentations at school too. I mustn't be unfair. And you're right. They were the ones that were the most simple and to the point. Some had some great visuals though. Charts and graphs, I mean.
Yeah, I think visuals are a really good idea. Sometimes you can get an idea across more clearly with a visual than through words. And there's loads of pictures on the net these days.
That's right.
I've got an idea. Why don't we do a practice run? I mean, when we've both got our presentations together, we can do them for one another and then suggest improvements and things. That's another golden rule they told us at school.
Okay, yeah. So we could give one another feedback on what we're talking about. And on our PowerPoints too.
Something else we could try is hyperlinks and audio and video clips.
Wow, you're getting ambitious. But that's okay. In fact, I'm getting quite excited myself, which is good, because I felt so miserable after my presentation last week.
Well, if we do a practice run and give one another feedback, like you said, that could be good. Not just for the course, but in my job too. I've got to give a presentation at work the week after next, in fact.
Great. Well, let's give ourselves a deadline, shall we? I need a deadline or else I won't do anything.
Yeah, I know what you mean. How about next Thursday then? In the afternoon, at around...
Unit 11. Working in Business. Vocabulary Focus. Exercise 6, page 125.
Efficient. Supportive. Bossy. Understanding. Confident. Friendly. Firm. Encouraging. Fair. Considerate. Punctual. Creative. Dynamic. A team player. Reliable. Obedient. Smart. Careful. Kind.
Unit 13. Modern Living. Exam Focus. Thinking about the IELTS practice test. Exercises 1 and 2, page 163.
As I said before, my mobile phone really has changed my life. In the past, I had to remember to do things, but now I use the phone to remind me. And I didn't use it to keep in touch with friends like I do now. And of course, there are so many different functions on phones nowadays. I don't have music on mine, but a lot of my friends do. I use the camera a lot. The quality is the same as a digital camera. And of course, I text all the time. But there are some things that annoy me. One thing is all this hands-free stuff. I sometimes walk towards people thinking that they're saying something to me. And another thing that annoys me is people having loud conversations in public places. And silly ringtones. I might get a phone that lets you get your emails next. The technology is just fantastic.
Unit 14. Talks, Presentations and Lectures. Vocabulary Focus. Exercise 7, page 166. Listen and repeat.
Try to look confident when you give a talk. Don't just read your notes aloud. Keep question time till the end. Don't worry if you make a mistake. It's important to make eye contact with your audience. Remember that your audience probably has a short attention span. Good talks help you focus on key points. Always do a rehearsal before giving your presentation. Use body language like gestures to emphasize your points. When you're giving your talk, never turn your back to the audience.
Skills Focus. Exercise 1, page 167.
In other words, but, finally, also, for instance, firstly, so, secondly, then. To sum up, on the whole.
Exercise 3, page 167.
I'd like to talk to you today about the structure of talks, presentations, and lectures. They are all structured in more or less the same way. There are 5 main parts to a talk. Firstly, there's the introduction. This simply tells your audience what your talk is going to be about. In other words, it introduces the topic and the order of the points it will make. For example, today I'm going to talk about X. Firstly, I'll discuss X. Then I'll talk about X. And finally, we'll look at X. Second comes the body of the talk. What I mean by this is discussion of your main points. After that, there's a summary which simply restates the points you made in the body of your talk, but in fewer words. Then, there's the conclusion. And finally, of course, there's question time. So, when you give talks yourselves, always remember to follow this structure.
Exercise 4, page 168.
There are a number of things that you need to remember before you give a talk. Firstly, you need to think about who your audience are. For example, how old they are, or how much they already know about the subject. In other words, you need to think about your audience's characteristics, i.e., what they're like, so you can make the content of the talk right for them. Another point to think about is how long your talk will be. You will want to tell your audience key information, but you need to decide how much key information to give them. This depends on the time available. So, when you plan your talk, you'll need to prioritize your information, deciding what is most important. You may also need to decide what information to leave out. To sum up, we can see that the planning stage is an important part of giving talks.
Skills Focus. Exercise 5, page 168. 1.
Speakers often try to start talks with some kind of strategy for catching people's attention, such as telling a joke or some kind of personal story. But in many countries, this is considered rather rude. Your audience might think you're insulting them by beginning a talk in this way.
2.
Speakers are often advised to have a question time at the end of their talk, rather than letting people ask questions during the talk. This is because the talk may answer the question anyway, and questions in the middle can distract from the talk's main topic.
3.
A speaker should tell the audience that there will be a question time at the end. This is because some people may expect to ask questions in the middle and feel rather insulted if the speaker doesn't give them an opportunity to do so.
4.
The way an audience expresses interest in a talk can vary from country to country. In the USA, for example, asking questions is a way of showing interest, whereas in Japan, listening politely is the way to do this.
5.
If you want your audience to be persuaded by what you are saying, try not to sound too hesitant. And don't use lots of it may be's, it might be's, perhaps is, and other ways of expressing doubt. Be definite and firm. Some research says that women have more difficulty convincing their audiences than men because they're not so good at sounding definite.
6.
Research suggests that men are not so good at showing emotion or talking about emotions during talks, whereas women do this more easily. Speaking with enthusiasm and feeling is certainly a good way of involving your audience, so it's something we should all at least try to do.
Exam Focus, IELTS Practice Test, page 172. You will hear a lecturer talking to a group of trainee teachers about listening skills.
Good morning. Today I'm going to be talking about what helps us listen well, that is, our listening skills. When you become teachers, you will need to make sure that your students know how to listen, as listening is one of the main ways that we take in information. There are, in fact, 2 main ways in which we listen. We call them top-down and bottom-up skills, and they help us make sense of what we're hearing. Let me explain what these are. Firstly, top-down skills. Now, these involve the listener in using his knowledge of the world to help him understand what he hears. For instance, you might know that a friend of yours always talks about football. You may also know quite a bit about football yourself. So you use this knowledge to make sense of what you're hearing, to predict what your friend is going to say, and to evaluate it. What this means is this kind of listening doesn't depend so much on listening to language, but more on understanding the situation. Let me give you another example. Imagine you're shopping in an Italian food market. A stallholder comes up to you with a packet of strawberries in their hands and says, "Fagiole, belle fagiole, solo €2." You don't speak Italian, but I'm sure you'd realize that they're talking about the price of the strawberries they're holding and that they want to sell them to you. You get all this information from the situation. Moving on, let's look at bottom-up listening skills. These involve actually hearing and processing language. So things like understanding words, grammar, intonation, stress, word order, contractions. Research shows that when they listen, good listeners don't just rely on bottom-up or top-down skills. They use both to help one another. For example, if you don't understand a particular word, you use your knowledge of the topic or situation to work out what it probably means. Or, if someone seems to be saying something unexpected, you might focus on their intonation and words to work out what their attitude really is. We also watch a person's face for signals about what mood they're in. So, listeners move constantly between the one type of listening and the other. When you start your work as teachers, you will need to help your students develop these skills. Okay.
Unit 15, The Natural World. Vocabulary Focus. Exercise 2, page 174.
Touch the picture of a planet. Touch the picture of mammals. Touch the picture of pollution. Touch the picture of a hurricane. Touch the picture of insects. Touch the picture of a storm. Touch the picture of floods. Touch the picture of solar energy. Touch the picture of a forest. Touch the picture of an ocean.
Exercise 3, page 174. 1.
Salmon, sharks and tuna are all kinds of fish.
2.
A drought is when it hasn't rained for a very long time.
3.
A volcano is a mountain with a forest on it.
4.
When a species of animal has died out, we say the animal is extinct.
5.
An island is a piece of land in the middle of the sky.
6.
A desert is a place which is full of sand and has very little water.
7.
Climate change is what happens when weather systems change significantly.
Eight.
A star is a planet which revolves around the sun.
Revision and exam practice. Units 1 to 4. Listening, Section 1. Pages 54 and 55. You will hear a man, John, talking to his friend Lynn about a long journey he has just had.
Just had the most awful journey back. A 2-hour journey just took me 6 hours.
6 hours? From Banbury to here, John? That's ridiculous!
Started going wrong as soon as I got to the station. I got there in time for the 4 o'clock train, went to buy my ticket in the ticket hall, only to be told there were no trains on Sunday because they were repairing the lines, but there was a coach instead. OK, no problem. But where was this coach? And I was meant to be travelling with Tom. You know the station, there's the ticket hall and that huge waiting lobby and the shops to the right. Well, they told us the coach would be waiting out in the new car park. Not the one by platform 7, but out beyond the shops after the entrance to the coffee shop. Well, I rang Tom and told him to meet me on the coach. Actually, I bumped into him just by the gate to the platform, so that was okay. Anyway, we got on the coach and everything was fine. But then the motorway was awful, absolutely jam-packed with traffic. We were just stuck there. It took us 2 hours for a 1-hour journey. So of course we missed the train connection at Uckford and had to hang around there for 2 hours. It could have been 3, but fortunately they'd put on an extra train for us. Anyway, the train came on time and we rushed on and got a seat, so again, all okay.
So, no problems from then on?
Well, it should have been like that, but it wasn't. We just got ourselves comfortable when I realised I hadn't got my rucksack with me. It just wasn't there. But I knew I'd had it on the coach and at Uckford Station as I'd been using my phone there. So I realised I must have left it in the cafe there.
Oh, no!
And it had all the important things in it, of course. You know. No money, fortunately, as that was in my pocket, but my wallet with my student card, library pass, credit cards, all those things. I had my keys on me too, but my mobile was in it with all those addresses and phone numbers and everything. I'd given some shopping to Tom to carry, and we'd eaten all the food I'd brought with me while we were waiting at Uckford. So it was pretty empty, but all the same I couldn't just lose all those things.
So what happened?
Well, I guess I was quite lucky, really. Tom rang Uckford Station on his mobile, and I had to describe my bag to them. You know, it's that bright yellow one with the green straps, so fortunately it's quite recognisable. And I'd stuck a little football on the outside, one of those ones that hang on a keyring. And there was a small bottle in the outside pocket. They found it straight away. Anyway, to cut a long story short, Jessie, that's who I stayed with in Banbury, she's driving up to Uckford tomorrow to pick it up. Then I'll meet up with her next week. So there we are, a 6-hour journey and 1 lost bag. What a way to spend the weekend!
Revision and exam practice. Units 5 to 8. Listening, Section 2. Pages 100 and 101. You will hear a housing officer talking to an audience about renting accommodation.
Now what I'd like to do today is explain how the rental market works here. I know many of you are thinking of staying on and working or studying here, so this is just to make sure you are quite clear what the housing situation is for renting privately or going into shared accommodation, hostels, hotels, etc. You've been staying in rooms here in the hostel over the last few months where everything has been looked after for you, but when you go out on your own, things will be a bit different. I suppose the first thing you'll need to make up your mind about is whether you want a place on your own or sharing. You could share with friends, or there are quite a few places around that ask for single people to make up a group to rent a flat or a house together. Then, of course, there's price. Well, that varies enormously depending on what you're after and the area you end up living in. You could pay about $80 a month for a room in a dormitory, but that could go up to around $200 for a flat on your own. Another thing you need to bear in mind is all the legal matters. First of all, you must get a contract. You sign this and so does the landlord, and it makes sure you do certain things like paying the rent and keeping the place in order. But it makes sure the landlord does certain things too, like repairing things that break, returning your deposit and respecting the length of your tenancy. Most rents in this country are for 6 months minimum, and you must make sure you have that guarantee in your contract. The landlord will then have absolutely no way of throwing you out during that period except in very exceptional circumstances. Something else you need to be careful about is a deposit. All landlords will ask for a deposit, which is normally equivalent to a month's rent. When you pay it, make sure you get a receipt, and make sure too that your contract says it will be returned at the end of the tenancy. What contracts usually say is that the deposit will be returned at the end of the tenancy minus any breakages or damage. If you broke a window, for example, or burnt a carpet, all that would come off your deposit. Now you can rent furnished or unfurnished, and surprisingly there's very little difference in the price. They cost almost the same. If you rent unfurnished, you can still expect certain basics, like for example all the fittings in the kitchen, the stove, the fridge, the kitchen cupboards, the washing machine. And when you go to look round, check to see what kind of heating is provided. Heating can be really costly, especially electric fires. Central heating is what you should be looking for. Right. Now, we're running out of time, so I'll stop, but just let me say, most places are rented out through agencies, so they offer you a lot of choice. If you need a list of agencies, I can give you one. But don't forget, you'll need to pay them too. It's usually around 10% of your first month's rent. But if you need advice on that, or any legal matters or anything else, just come and see me. All right, maybe we can have 1 or 2 questions. Anybody?
Revision and exam practice, Units 9 to 12. Listening, Section 2, page 149. You will hear a conversation between 2 students and a tutor talking about the student's project.
So, you're here to talk about your project, is that right? What's the problem exactly?
Well, we've got something interesting to research, but we'd just like to check through what we've planned with you, to make sure we've got it right.
Fine, but I'm afraid I've only got 5 minutes, so you'll need to be quick. What's it about and what are you doing?
Well, we want to survey college students' job hopes, the kinds of jobs they want to get when they leave college, and what they expect to get from those jobs.
Yes, that's okay as a subject. That's fine. But how are you going to do it?
Well, we've got a questionnaire. We designed it already and piloted it. You know, tried it out, I mean. It seems to work fine. We were worried it might be a bit long or unclear, but there were no problems.
Right. So far, so good. Are you doing anything else?
Well, we thought that after the questionnaire, and after we've analysed the results, we might interview some students to see if we can get more information about any of their answers. I mean, if we can't explain or understand some of the answers, we might interview people to try and get some reasons for their answers.
Good idea. Now, how many people are you giving the questionnaire to?
Well, we thought about 25. That's our friends mostly, so it should be easy to organise.
And the aim of your survey is to find out college students' opinions about future jobs, right?
Yes, that's it. Is something wrong?
Yes, something is wrong, I'm afraid. If you want to find out about college students' opinions, then you must interview a representative sample. Do you remember what that means? It means that you must include enough people and enough people of the right kind to be typical of the whole group. I imagine your friends might be on the same course as you.
Well, quite a few of them are. Yes.
Well, imagine for a moment that you just interviewed students studying tourism and leisure management. Do you think you'd get the same answers from them as from a group of engineering students?
Oh, I see what you mean. Probably not. You mean that we need to ask students studying as many different courses as possible?
Yes, that's right, and you need to make sure that you interview a solid number from each course. Otherwise, you might interview someone who was untypical of students on that course. Your survey just won't be reliable if you go ahead as you've planned, I'm afraid.
But we can't do that. We'd have to interview thousands of students, which just isn't practical. Oh dear. We just can't manage that. We can't do it. That means all our work on the questionnaire has been wasted, and the report is due in 1 month. I don't know what we can do.
Well, we can't start from the beginning again. We just haven't time.
I have a suggestion. You say you have a group of 25 people who would do the questionnaire, and they're all from your nursing course?
Well, most of them are. And we know lots of other nurses. Ah, I think I get it. We can just survey nursing students.
But how can we meet our aims then?
We can't, so we have to change them. We need to survey nursing students' job hopes. The kinds of jobs they want to get when they leave college, and what they expect to get from those jobs.
That's it, but you still need a representative sample. At least 100, I'd say, and decide which year you want too. First, second, or third year students. They might have different ideas if they're in first or third year, so stick to the same year. In fact, this could be a very useful project. And maybe as nurses yourselves, you'll find it more interesting than what you'd planned. Oh, and one last thing. Get the right gender balance. I mean, make sure that you have the right number of men and women in your survey. The percentage of each should reflect the percentage on the course.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yes, this could be interesting.
Listen, I'm sorry, but I really have to go now. If you want to talk this through a bit more with me, then come back Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock.
Revision and exam practice, Units 13 to 16. Listening. General training and academic. Page 197. You will hear a college lecturer talking about the differences between written and spoken language.
Right. What I'd like us to think about today is what is different between how we speak and how we write. Have you ever thought about what the difference is between things that you read and things that you listen to? Of course, the obvious difference is that one is written down and the other is not. But in fact, there are lots of other differences too. And because what we listen to and read is actually different, we listen and read in different ways. When we listen, we often listen to conversations that we are part of, or telephone calls that we're part of too. In other words, we're participants in what is being said. But when we write, we can't immediately respond to how a reader reacts. We don't have an audience to look at. When writers write their letters or emails or books or articles, they may well think about who they are writing for, but they don't change what they say as they say it. A conversation and other kinds of spoken language are usually unplanned. We just say what comes into our heads. That's not true of lectures. They're usually planned, and speeches are too. In fact, they're often written out before they're read, but generally speaking, we can say that spoken language is less planned than written language. In fact, we usually think about and plan written text before we actually write them. Maybe that's not true of informal emails or letters, but it's true of most things we write. Experts on language have analyzed the effects of this on language itself, and they've been able to show that spoken language is in fact quite different to written language. Spoken language often contains short sentences made up of simple grammar and quite general vocabulary. In fact, often when we speak, we don't use full sentences, but just parts of them, or we start a sentence, then stop it to start another one, because we're looking for the best way to say something under pressure from time. When we write, we don't have that time pressure, so we can think about what we want to say. Also, when we write, we can't rely on body language, gestures, the situation, or our listener asking for clarification to help us get our message across. All this means that written language needs to be much clearer and more precise than spoken language. And this is, of course, what the experts have found. Written sentences tend to be longer than spoken sentences. They contain more complex structures and more precise vocabulary. And they're also better joined together than spoken ones with a greater variety of conjunctions and more careful organization. This doesn't mean that written language is better than spoken language. It just means that it carries out a different function. If we spoke as we write, people would find it difficult to understand us. That's why audiences often simply stop listening to presentations that are read aloud. They aren't being rude. It's just because written language, when spoken, is too hard for our brains to process, so we stop listening.
1. About yourself. Exam focus. Exercise 2, page 9.
What sort of accommodation do you live in?
I live in a small apartment. It's very small.
And is the place you live in quiet or busy?
It's a suburb, so it is a quiet place. I don't mind. A quiet place is good for me.
And what is there to do in the evenings where you live?
It's a quiet place, so I prefer to stay in my apartment and watch TV. Maybe sometimes I go to a cafe with some friends.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about travelling. What is the best means of transport for getting around in your city?
Transport means you move around the place by bus or car, something like that. In my city, there is a lot of traffic, so it is difficult to move around.
Tell me about any travel plans you have made for the holidays.
I am going to visit my sister. She lives in another town which is far from here. I am going with all my family.
Exercise 3, page 9. 1.
Is the place you live in quiet or busy?
Two.
What sort of accommodation do you live in?
Three.
What is there to do in the evenings where you live?
Four.
Okay, so let's talk about your free time. How often do you go to the cinema?
Five.
Does physical exercise help you to relax?
Six.
Do you spend a lot of your free time on the internet?
Seven.
tell me about one of your hobbies. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about...
2. Travelling. Vocabulary focus. Exercise 4, page 11.
Arriving at the airport. Airports, especially large ones, can seem very confusing for a first-time traveller. Do not worry. When you learn the routines, you will be fine. There are many things to do at airports, but remember your most important goals: checking in, entering the security area, and boarding the plane. Arrive in good time at the airport. Everything takes time at the airport: check-in, security control, shopping, eating, whatever. Your airline can tell you when to arrive at the airport, usually 1 hour before the plane leaves. As a first-time traveller, you should arrive half an hour or an hour before the recommended latest time. Arrive at the right terminal. Larger airports have many terminals, and quite often the distances between them are long. It's important to arrive at the right terminal. Your travel itinerary usually says what terminal your plane will depart from. If you're unsure, contact the airport, your travel agent, or your airline. Have your travel documents available. You need to present your travel documents frequently at the airport. Important travel documents might be passport or other identification, tickets, if you have paper tickets, boarding card, given to you at check-in, and your travel itinerary, not important but very useful. Navigate yourself. When you arrive in the departure area, your first mission is to find your check-in desk. Some airports have screens showing what desk you should check in at, while at other airports you will have for your airline's notice board. If you arrive early and can't find where you need to check in, it might be that the check-in for your route has not started. You may also need to queue if there are a lot of people travelling, so do get to the airport in plenty of time.
Skills focus. Exercise 1, page 12. Listen to the recording and underline which of the two sets of words, phrases, the speaker says. 1,
He can't speak Mandarin.
2,
Do you really like chips?
3,
I only drive when it's light.
4,
What's the time?
5,
I'll have a go.
6,
These shops.
7,
You and me and my brother.
8,
I wasn't ill.
9,
I would have come.
10.
They'll travel by train.
Exercise 3, page 12. What words do these letters spell? Write the letters down, then say the word. 1,
DESTINATION
2,
ILLEGAL
3,
BOARDINGCARD
4,
GATE
5,
X hyphen RAY MACHINE
6,
GOODS
7,
DUTY
8,
Lounge.
9,
Foreign. Currency.
10,
Credits.
and the answers are 1. Destination 2. Illegal 3. Boarding card 4. Gate 5. X-ray machine 6. Goods 7. Duty-free 8. Lounge 9. Foreign currency and 10. Credit cards. Did you get them right? OK, and now for a test of your numbers. Write the numbers down and work out the sums. 11.
77 equals 27 plus how much?
12.
15 equals 10 plus how much?
13.
163 equals 101 plus how much?
14.
1792 equals 1702 plus how much?
15.
11,549 equals 11,400 plus how much?
These last ones are a bit Listen. 16.
500 minus 200 equals how much?
17.
1,402 minus 312 equals how much?
18.
27,926 minus 216 equals how much?
19.
17 minus 9 equals how much?
20.
100 minus 63 equals how much?
And now for the answers. The answer to number 11 is 50. Number 12 is 5. Number 13 is 62. Number 14 is 90. That's 90. And number 15 is 149. And the answers to the last questions: number 16 is 300. Number 17 is 1090. Number 18 is 27,710. Number 19 is 8. And number 20 is 37. OK? Exam focus. Page 15. You will hear a travel agent and a traveller talking about flights to Singapore and accommodation there.
So, you want a single ticket to Singapore in March, is that right?
Yes, I'd like to get there just before Easter.
OK, I'll just have a look. Right. The best prices are $394 with Malaysian Airlines or $270 with Garuda. The Garuda flight's cheaper because it takes longer. It stops on the way, but the Malaysian one's direct. It only takes 2 hours.
Is Garuda much longer?
Yes, about 5 hours, because it makes 2 stopovers, in fact.
Well, that'd be okay. I'm not in a great hurry, and it's a lot cheaper.
The problem is you might miss your hostel booking with that flight. You'd get there a day later, and this hostel we found takes Sunday to Sunday bookings only.
So save on a cheaper flight or lose my hostel. Oh, that's okay. There must be another hostel for those dates.
Well, let's have another look. Right, okay, there is something, the Welcome Hostel, but it's right out on the East Coast, which is very good for the airport, but quite away from the centre.
Oh, that doesn't matter. I can catch a bus or something. I think transport's really good in Singapore. What can you tell me about the hostel?
Well, it's 30 Singaporean dollars a night. That's about £10 or 20 US. You get a single room with breakfast, and you have to share a bathroom. And there's a coffee shop.
Sounds good to me. Let's go for it. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention, can I pay by traveller's cheque? Someone stole my credit card.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, I'm not sure really. I just had a drink in Just Coffee and was walking along the street. I was getting my camera out because I wanted to take a picture of the building. It's so fantastic.
Yeah, it sure is.
Anyway, I was just walking down that street behind it. You get a great view of it from there. I just turned the corner as I wanted to go to the museum, when I suddenly felt a hand in my pocket. Then saw this guy run off straight back down the street. He must have had someone working with him, because then I saw two of them running into the mall.
You mean the one next to the Dyson building?
No, further down on the street. I was on the other side of the park, the one at the end.
Oh, you'd never find them in there. It's enormous.
Oh, I didn't even try. I was okay, and I just rang my bank straight away. So in fact, they didn't get anything. But I'm still waiting for my new card.
5. Education. Skills focus. Exercise 1, page 30.
Well, I have always lived in this area near the coast, and I have always been interested in the sea and particularly in fishing and seafood. What I mean is I try and go out on a fishing boat whenever I can, and I love learning how to cook what we catch. It was my uncle who first got me involved. He used to be a commercial fisherman, and then when he stopped work, he got a smaller boat which he took me out in, and basically my aunt was always cooking things like lobster, shark, or seaweed, which I love. I suppose it was my stomach that got me really interested. My aunt makes a fantastic bouillabaisse. It's like a mixture of everything you find in the Mediterranean. Anyway, through my uncle I met people who work on larger fishing boats, and they sometimes let me go out with them. I also do jobs for them, and I'm paid in fish. Last week, for instance, I was helping clean the underside of a boat. It was the captain of that boat who some time ago got me thinking about studying marine biology or maritime studies, and that's why I'm taking IELTS. I want to go to Holland to study. I'd say that I would recommend fishing to others, especially in an area like this, because the sea is fascinating, and it's great to do something in different seasons outdoors. And seafood is just great.
6. Accommodation. Vocabulary focus. Exercise 3, page 34.
Residential colleges or similar purpose-built residences for students normally provide a single bedroom with study desk, wardrobe, shared bathrooms, and a shared common room. Some colleges provide meals. Students with special dietary requirements need to inquire whether the college can cater for their dietary requirements. Some college residences provide kitchen facilities for students to cook their own meals. Our college accommodation starts from $290 per week. There is also accommodation near our college site. This accommodation is a 6-story, 450-bed complex. It caters for a range of student needs from one-bedroom units with their own kitchen, lounge and bathroom through to shared apartments with up to 5 lockable bedrooms surrounding a common kitchen, lounge and bathrooms. All apartments are fully furnished and have been designed with students in mind. Prices start from $211 per week per room in a 5 or 6 persons shared apartment. Student lodges and hostels are similar to residential colleges, but are not located on or necessarily near the grounds of a college. An established weekly, fortnightly semester fee is charged for either a single room or twin share, 2 people per room. Smaller hostels may have only 9 people in one house, with larger hostels accommodating more than 30 people in one building. Some hostels cater for female or male students only, while others offer a mixed living environment. All places have a communal bathroom, kitchen, dining room, and living room. It is common for meals to be provided, but there are facilities available where you can do your own cooking. Prices for hostels that provide meals start from $200 a week.
Exercise 5, page 35. 1.
What do you put across windows to keep the light out?
2.
Which room do most people cook in?
3.
What's the name of the appliance people cook on?
4.
What machine do you use to keep a room cool?
5.
What piece of furniture do you hang clothes in?
6.
What do you put your mobile phone charger into when you want to use it?
7.
What should you throw rubbish into in your room?
8.
What's the name of the cheap accommodation where there are lots of beds in a long room?
9.
What's the machine you use to clean floors and carpets?
10.
What's the opposite of downstairs?
11.
What's the thing you put on your bed to keep you warm?
12.
What's the part of the house behind the front door? It's not really a room.
13.
What's the machine used to clean dirty clothes?
14.
What's that nice soft thing you rest your head on in bed?
15.
Where can you wash if you don't use a bath or a basin?
Skills focus. Exercise 1, page 36. Listen to the recording and tick which of the 2 sentences the speaker says. Listen carefully. 1.
The kitchen is so cold.
2.
I'd prefer a large room with air conditioning.
3.
I would have paid in that situation.
4.
How did you switch it on?
5.
The bus stopped outside the house.
6.
You don't smoke, do you?
7.
You shouldn't pay your rent now.
8.
The flat's near Green Park.
9.
I'd like a cheap rent in shared accommodation.
Exercise 2, page 36. Listen to the recording. Match the paraphrases you hear to the sentences below. Write the correct number of the paraphrase in the boxes. 1.
It's quite near, just down that street over there.
2.
I've lost all my valuables.
3.
I got luggage that was easy to carry.
4.
We couldn't hear him. 5. They arrive together. 6. The rule is lights out by 12 o'clock. 7. She never has breakfast out. 8. What's your address?
Exercise 3, page 36. Speaker 1.
I don't want to have to go out and buy any furniture.
Speaker 2.
I'd rather live with other people.
Speaker 3.
The flat isn't near the centre of town.
Speaker 4.
You'll need to pay something like $300 per month.
Speaker 5.
You'll have to bring your own bedding.
Speaker 6.
Think hard about what you'd want a housemate to be like.
Speaker 7.
There are significant differences between renting a house and living in halls of residence.
Speaker 8.
There are reduced costs if sharing.
Speaker 9.
You may experience difficulties if you don't understand your contract.
Speaker 10.
Finding the right accommodation is a personal and individual choice.
Exam focus. Page 39. You will hear a man leaving a telephone message for a friend about a hotel he is recommending.
Hi, Aaron. Listen, I'm returning your call. I'll leave a long message in case I can't catch you before you go. I'm going away myself tomorrow. Right, well, you say you're going to Sydney next month and want to know about where I stayed when I was there. Well, the place I stayed in was good, but it was pretty basic. I hope you don't want anything smart. If you just want something cheap and clean, then this is the place for you. It was very clean, but there are no rooms. It's just a dormitory, really, and nothing much else was provided. Sheets, a blanket, a shared shower. That's all, I think. It wasn't that expensive, and depending on how long you stayed, I think it got cheaper. $25 a night and $150 a week, or something like that. Now, if you want to contact them, it's the Duquesne in Bondi. Yes, that's right, Bondi as in Bondi Beach. So it's great for swimming and surfing and hanging out. I'll give you the name again, the Duquesne, that's Ducheney. It's on Macquarie Street, 13 Macquarie Street, and their phone number is, where is it? Oh yes, 61, that's 61 for Australia, right? So 612-9361-8517. There was this really nice guy who worked there. Try and speak to him. His name was, I can't remember. Never mind. I'll find his email and send it to you. But why don't we try and meet up before you go? I'm leaving at 6 tomorrow evening, catching the Indian Pacific. So, yeah, going by train for a change. So, this evening would be fine, any time. I've got a new mobile number, by the way. The old one, it got stolen. It's 923-712647. Okay, cheers. Oh, and let's meet up there, too.
Nine. Free time and entertainment. Exam focus. Exercise 2, page 57. Candidate A.
So, Miguel, let's first discuss spending time with friends. What would you say are the best ways to keep in touch with friends?
Well, it depends. If they live near you, I think you have to make time to see them. I know from my own experience, if you don't make time to do things together, you lose touch. That's why I've always tried to get friends round or go out with friends about twice a week. But if your friends live a long way away, I think you have to use things like the internet and Facebook.
But don't you think young people perhaps overuse that kind of thing?
No, I don't think so. People who say that's all kids do are wrong. Young people actually use technology so much because they have a lot of things going on in their lives. That's the way things are today.
And what would you say are the types of things that can test a friendship?
A lot of things. I think you always hope that friends won't lie to you. And of course, you expect them to keep in touch. But I suppose if a friend didn't support you at a difficult time, you would wonder whether he was your friend. That's how I feel about my friends, at least. I know from my own experience.
Candidate B.
So let's talk about how children spend their free time. Tell me, Sasha, do you think children spend too much time watching TV?
Children watch TV too much. It's bad for their eyes and their body, and they don't go and play outside.
And what do you think their parents can do?
Parents can stop the TV. My parents, they sometimes stop the TV for my sister and tell her, "Hey, go and do something with your friends."
And what sort of clubs do you think children should be encouraged to join?
Join, maybe dancing clubs. Dancing is good for their body, and they go outside, so they are not always at home.
And how does membership of a club help children?
They make friends, go outside, and learn new things which are good for them at school. And perhaps
10. Jobs. Vocabulary focus. Exercise 4, page 58. 1.
Businessman.
2.
Resources.
3.
Industrial.
4.
Administrator.
5.
Accountant.
6.
Tourist.
7.
Design.
8.
Lecture.
9.
Dentistry.
10.
Headmistress.
11.
Mechanical.
12.
Transportation.
Exercise 7, page 59. 1.
I don't know. It's great, it's fun, but you never know from 1 week to the next if you'll have a job in a month's time.
2.
all you do every day is just put things into files, look things up on the computer, enter figures onto spreadsheets. You do the same thing every day.
3.
It's so interesting and fulfilling, but I just can't go on with it. I can hardly afford to pay my rent.
4.
We start at 11 in the morning, which is good, then go straight through till 5 p.m. Then have a little break, then go through till midnight, so it's pretty tiring.
5.
I was amazed. In 4 weeks, I got enough to pay off all my debts, to rent a new flat and buy a computer. Don't know what I'm going to do with all of next month's salary.
6.
It constantly pushes me and makes me think. I have to question and test everything I do. I really like that. It makes you very good at things.
7.
I know that from now on I'll never have to look for another job. It's a great feeling knowing that they can never give you the sack.
8.
I think the manager thinks I'm quite good at what I do, and it's a big firm with lots of branches all over the place, so I'm sort of hoping that it'll offer me all kinds of opportunities.
9.
Yes, it's okay. The money isn't bad and it isn't very demanding, but I just think that if I'm not careful, I'll be doing the same thing I'm doing now in 20 years' time. What's the point of that?
10.
Honestly, I'm just so lucky. All I have to do is hand out information to passers-by and answer their questions, if they have any, which they never do. Really, I could do it with my eyes closed.
Skills focus. Exercise 1, page 60. Speaker 1.
You haven't really left your job, have you?
Speaker 2.
I told you to do it immediately, not by tomorrow morning.
Speaker 3.
They wrote me a letter and phoned me. I really think I've got the job.
Speaker 4.
There's so much to do. I just don't see how I can manage it in the time I've got.
Speaker 5.
I need to finish this before I go home tonight and install a new computer program.
Skills focus. Exercise 1, page 60. Speaker 1.
You haven't really left your job, have you?
Speaker 2.
I told you to do it immediately, not by tomorrow morning.
Speaker 3.
They wrote me a letter and phoned me. I really think I've got the job.
Speaker 4.
There's so much to do. I just don't see how I can manage it in the time I've got.
Speaker 5.
I need to finish this before I go home tonight and install a new computer program.
Exercise 2, page 60. Speaker 1.
I've looked everywhere, and goodness knows how many application forms I've sent in. It really isn't looking very good.
Speaker 2.
It was awful. He just kept asking me all these questions non-stop, and he didn't give me a chance to answer.
Speaker 3.
I'll need to get there really early, and the night before I'll do a practice interview. And I'll wear that new suit, of course.
Speaker 4.
It's just the sort of thing I'm interested in. Just found it when I was looking through the paper.
Speaker 5.
This is the 19th form I filled in this month. It's also time-consuming and costly.
Speaker 6.
What? I don't believe it. Listen to this. They're offering me the job.
Exercise 3, page 60. Speaker 1.
Sometimes they've been injured, but often they're sick, just like humans. We need to check them over and find the right treatment. It's not always easy because they can't talk, of course.
Speaker 2.
I help out mainly. Materials come in, and I have to unload them and store them. Then I have to give the right tools to the builders and keep everything clean. Sometimes I do some heavy work, like lifting and digging.
Speaker 3.
We generally look after the patients. That means washing them and making sure they're clean, giving them their medicines, and of course, going to them if they ring for us.
Speaker 4.
I was really nervous at the beginning having to talk to so many people, but PowerPoint is a real help. And also many of the students are really quite interested, which makes a difference.
Speaker 5.
I organise things mainly, type letters, answer emails on the phone. If you have a good boss, it can be really challenging.
Speaker 6.
You need to be nice to people, basically, and give them the help they need. You have to deal with all the people that come up to the desk, then direct them to the right person.
Exercise 4, page 60.
I'm thinking of changing my job, like to get a new one.
Are you sure that's wise? A job is a job, and they're hard to find at the moment.
Yes, but I need more money.
Do you enjoy it?
Actually, I think it's great. The hours are good. I'm given lots of freedom to do things how I want. And of course, it's all about cinema, which I love. Oh, I really don't know what to think.
You know all those surveys they do of job satisfaction?
Go on, tell me.
Well, all those I've read say the same thing, really, that what matters most of all is liking what you do, being interested in it.
Yes, but I would like more money.
Well, they say that money doesn't matter so much, really, providing, of course, that it gives you enough to live on. What about your boss? Do you get on with her? They say that's pretty important.
Yes, she's fine. Really helpful, in fact. She's always given me good things to do.
And the other people?
They're great. We all help one another. There's none of that competition and gossip that you get in some places. And we often go out together. So, in fact, they've sort of become friends.
Right, well, they say that interest in the job, feeling supported by your boss and getting on with your co-workers are key. So it sounds as if you'd be mad to change, but it's up to you, of course. Maybe the best thing is to think about what's really important to you at the moment. Money or job satisfaction.
Exam focus. Page 63. You will hear two people talking about a survey they need to carry out at the town's new airport.
So, we really must decide who's doing what.
Yes, we haven't got much time left.
Well, why don't we go up there tomorrow and just interview everyone who comes past?
I don't know. We won't have time, and also we need a mix of people. Shouldn't we have equal percentages of men, women, elderly, young, and foreign nationals and locals?
Oh, yes. We've got to make the population representative. Let's think. How are we going to do that?
Well, we could each keep account of the kind of people we've interviewed and make sure we get a balance.
Yes, and maybe we could text one another after about an hour to say what mix of people we've had.
Good idea. So let's sort out who's doing what. We're both interviewing, right?
Yes, and you can go and see the airport manager to make sure he'll let us interview, while I go and buy us some drinks. Then, at the end, you can give me the forms to take home and input. I don't mind doing that.
That would be great. You're much quicker on the computer than me.
But let's analyse all the data together, so we don't make any mistakes.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I'm quite looking forward to it. It'll be interesting to see what people say, and we can get to practice our interviewing skills, which should be useful for when we're on the other end being interviewed ourselves.
Yes, and analysing and presenting our findings should be good too. You know that nowadays you have to give presentations when you apply for some jobs. So again, it's useful job application practice. In fact, why don't we ask the others for feedback, both on what we've found out and on how well we've presented? That could be really useful.
You're a brave man. I'm not too keen, but I suppose you're right, actually. They could give us some useful tips. But let's give them a questionnaire to fill in, shall we? So that we can direct what they say. I don't want just to hear a load of negative criticism.
You don't need to be so worried about what they'll say. They'll give us lots of help, I'm sure. But a questionnaire would be a good idea. OK, so we're ready. See you outside the Grand Cafe at 2 tomorrow. And don't forget the forms.
Don't worry, I won't.
"13. Modern living. Vocabulary focus. Exercise 2, page 79. Moneyless living.
So, Mark, how did you decide to lead a life without money?
I suppose my decision to give up money, not just cash but credit cards too, was made 7 years ago when I stumbled upon a DVD about Gandhi.
Tell me more.
Well, he said we should be the change we want to see in the world. I realized then that working for an organic food company as I was doing would never be quite enough. I mean, the organic food industry, though not 24/7 junk food living, was part of the conventional system it was trying to change. That is, excess plastic packaging, massive food miles, big businesses and restaurant chains buying up little ones.
So what did you do?
Well, I found a caravan that someone else didn't want anymore, and I volunteered at weekends at an organic farm near Bristol in return for a place to park it.
So what do you live on?
Well, for food I grow my own, collect it in the forest, and swap what I grow for other things I need.
And what about cooking without gas or electricity?
Well, cooking outside has become one of the joys of my life. I now can't think of anything better than marveling at the world at sunrise and sunset while preparing my daily meals. Birds in the trees around my kitchen have become my iPod, and observing wildlife has taught me much more about nature than any documentary I've seen on any HD screen.
And how do you manage without other technology?
Well, I did spend money, about £360, before beginning the experiment, on a solar panel to supply me with enough electricity for a light, my laptop and mobile phone. I can only receive calls. The panel has always provided light, but in winter my phone and internet access time was severely limited, which was frustrating.
So what other drawbacks are there of moneyless living?
Everything takes much more time. Hand-washing clothes, for instance, using laundry liquid made by boiling up some nuts, doesn't bother me, but it can take 2 hours. And finding stuff in rubbish bins, such as the steamer I cook with, takes far longer than popping to the local shopping centre for one.
And what about transport?
Cycling the 36-mile round trip to Bristol takes a lot more time and energy than driving or catching a bus, but it's also an economical alternative to my old gym subscription or getting a personal trainer, and much more enjoyable than using a car with satellite navigation.
So what's been the best part of the experience?
Well, I'd much rather spend time making my own bread outdoors than playing on a game console. I suppose where money once gave me a sense of security, I now find that in friends and the local community. Some of my closest friends are people I've only met because I had to build real relationships based on trust and kindness, not money.
Skills focus. Exercise 3, page 80. 1.
Do you prefer modern or traditional music from your country?
It depends. On my iPod, I have mostly modern stuff. A lot of it by foreign bands and singers. But I do often listen to more classical folk music too, especially when I'm studying.
2.
How often do you go out with friends?
Not as much as I'd like. All my friends are studying for their exams this year, so it is difficult to find time. And I also have a part-time weekend job. But I always try and see friends on Fridays or Saturdays.
3.
What special occasions do families celebrate together in your country?
Apart from religious festivals, it's mainly birthdays and anniversaries. We usually have big meals together if it's someone's birthday. And in my family, we always celebrate my parents' wedding anniversary by going out for a meal.
4.
What piece of technology do you value most?
The microwave, definitely. I don't have time to cook and I love junk food, so meals for me need to be fast. And I usually eat on the go, either at my computer or going out the door.
5.
Where do you go shopping?
I can't stand shopping, so I try to avoid it as much as possible. If I do need things, I try to go somewhere where I can get everything all at once, like a mega store or a mall.
6.
When do you typically use the computer?
24/7. The computer is never off in my house. If I'm not using my own computer for homework or just for me, I'm usually doing something for my parents on theirs.
7.
Do you still write letters?
Not really. I would never write a letter to a friend, only text or email. And I think everything official I've done recently, like applications and complaints, I've done online.
8.
Would you like to live abroad?
I hope to study abroad, so the answer is definitely yes. What could be better as a young person than the chance to experience another country and culture for a year or two? But I'm not sure I would want to move abroad permanently.
9.
Is going to the cinema popular in your country?
It used to be, but I think things have changed. Young people won't wait anymore for a film to come to the cinema, and they download it at home instead.
10.
What is an ideal holiday for you?
Something completely different. I mean, doing something in a new place that I don't do every day. Holidays for me are not about relaxing, but about adventure and new experiences.
Exercise 4, page 80. 1.
Do you prefer modern or traditional music from your country?
It depends. On my iPod, I have mostly modern stuff. A lot of it by foreign bands and singers. But I do often listen to more classical folk music too, especially when I'm studying. I suppose it's all about the mood I am in.
2.
How often do you go out with friends?
Not as much as I'd like. All my friends are studying for their exams this year, so it is difficult to find time. And I also have a part-time weekend job. But I always try and see friends on Fridays or Saturdays. It's often a last-minute thing, though.
3.
What special occasions do families celebrate together in your country?
Apart from religious festivals, it's mainly birthdays and anniversaries. We usually have big meals together if it's someone's birthday. And in my family, we always celebrate my parents' wedding anniversary by going out for a meal. That's pretty typical where I am from.
4.
What piece of technology do you value most?
The microwave, definitely. I don't have time to cook and I love junk food, so meals for me need to be fast. And I usually eat on the go, either at my computer or going out the door. Life is just so hectic.
5.
Where do you go shopping?
I can't stand shopping, so I try to avoid it as much as possible. If I do need things, I try to go somewhere where I can get everything all at once, like a mega store or a mall. The sooner it's over, the better.
6.
When do you typically use the computer?
24/7. The computer is never off in my house. If I'm not using my own computer for homework or just for me, I'm usually doing something for my parents on theirs. It's my basic life tool.
7.
Do you still write letters?
Not really. I would never write a letter to a friend, only text or email. And I think everything official I've done recently, like applications and complaints, I've done online. I just think the world has moved on.
8.
Would you like to live abroad?
I hope to study abroad, so the answer is definitely yes. What could be better as a young person than the chance to experience another country and culture for a year or two? But I'm not sure I would want to move abroad permanently. That's a completely different thing.
9.
Is going to the cinema popular in your country?
It used to be, but I think things have changed. Young people won't wait anymore for a film to come to the cinema, and they download it at home instead. It's a pity, I think.
10.
What is an ideal holiday for you?
Something completely different. I mean, doing something in a new place that I don't do every day. Holidays for me are not about relaxing, but about adventure and new experiences. Something exotic and something fun.
Grammar focus. Exercise 3, page 82.
Writer interview. Kristen Bear O'Keefe, in China. You're an American writer living in Shanghai, China. How did you end up there?
In 2005, my husband said to me, "How would you feel about living in China?" China? My company wants me to go there for a couple of years. Until that moment, I hadn't ever considered living in China. Italy? Sure. Greece? Absolutely. But China? Still, it did not take me long to make a decision. I was an adventurous writer and a woman in love. Why not move to China? After a few short seconds of consideration, I said, "Sure, let's go." 5 months later, we were living in Shanghai. I did not speak a word of Mandarin, did not know a soul, and honestly, did not know much about Chinese culture, other than what I had learned during our 3-day cultural training class, but I was fascinated. I grabbed my Mac and my camera and set off. I've been exploring and writing ever since. My second book, which came out a few months ago, is about China.
It sounds like you have made a niche for yourself as a writer in China through teaching, writing about your adopted home, and creating a reading series. What do you like most about living in China? Is it a good place to live as a writer?
Living in China is this crazy, kooky, wonderful, frustrating, overwhelming, fulfilling, eye-opening experience. I've lived here for 4 years now, and I'm pretty sure I have found enough material to last a lifetime. 2 lifetimes, maybe. Since moving here in 2006, I've been working hard to create a writerly niche for myself in Shanghai. But I have also worked hard lately to establish myself as a writer abroad in the larger world community. This is key, especially if you want to someday publish a book in the US.
14. Talks, presentations, and lectures. Vocabulary focus. Exercise 5, page 85. 1,
Question time.
2,
Visual aids.
3,
The next point I'd like to make.
4,
Responsive.
5,
Conclusion.
6,
In summary.
7,
Eye contact.
8,
Attention span.
9,
Key points.
10.
Body language.
Exercise 6, page 85. Extract 1.
About 5 years ago, I co-taught a course with another teacher who used PowerPoint slides a lot for his lectures. He also handed out copies of the slides before class so students could use them to make notes.
Extract 2.
Before that, my own approach to teaching had been very different. I used slides very rarely, only for graphs and pictures that were too complicated to draw on the board. I also had lots of interaction with the class, as I didn't feel I needed to finish my show in the time allowed. But to be consistent with my colleague, I decided to try out his approach, so from day one, I used slides, usually about 8 to 10 per class, and handed out copies of the slides I'd planned to use before class.
Extract 3.
After a few weeks, I noticed something I'd not seen previously. Attendance at my class had dropped to perhaps as low as 50% of the class. And I noticed, too, that I wasn't interacting as much with the class. I still asked questions and started discussions, but I was unwilling to let discussions develop in case I didn't get through the slides I'd planned to cover.
Extract 4.
After a few weeks more of this approach, 2 students came up to me after class and said, in effect, "Dr. Roberts, this class is boring. All we do is read through the slides, which you have already given us. It's just so easy to stop listening to you." After I'd got over the shock, I asked if they thought they'd get more out of the class and be more engaged if I started using the board again instead. Both said, yes.
Extract 5.
For the rest of the semester, I went back to the board. No slides in or before class. Attendance went back up to traditional levels. The class became more interactive, and my teaching evaluations at the end of the term were similar to those I'd received previously. Ever since that experience, I have never been tempted to structure my teaching around slides or PowerPoint.
Skills focus. Exercise 3, page 86. Speaker 1.
What words could I use to introduce a new point?
Speaker 2.
What words could I use to introduce a clarification?
Speaker 3.
What words could I use to introduce a summary?
Speaker 4.
What words could I use to introduce a contrast?
Speaker 5.
What words could I use to introduce my final point?
Speaker 6.
What words could I use to introduce an example?
Speaker 7.
What words could I use to introduce my first point?
Speaker 8.
What words could I use to introduce the next thing that happened?
Speaker 9.
What words could I use to introduce a conclusion?
Speaker 10.
What words could I use to introduce some additional information about the same thing?
Exercise 4, page 86. You will hear a college lecturer talking about the value of grammar.
I'd like to talk to you today about grammar. I imagine that many of you are already groaning in boredom, but I'd like to convince you to think about grammar in another, more positive way. What I'd like to look at first is, what is grammar? Then look at if we all know grammar, next at how we learn it, and finally look at the role of grammar in learning a foreign language. So what is grammar? I would say that grammar is simply the way we use patterns and groups of words to make meaning. For example, fruit of kind strawberries are a. Makes no sense to you, am I right? But strawberries are a kind of fruit. Does make sense. And this is simply because of the grammar, i.e. the order in which the words are organised and the changes made to individual words. Many people are scared of grammar. They think it's boring, too abstract or complicated. But in fact, we all use grammar every day when we communicate with one another. We have to in order to get our meanings across. And children too, even as young as 2, use grammar to communicate. So it can't really be that complicated. But there's another meaning of grammar too, and that's using terms to describe language patterns and their uses. For example, infinitives, past participle, tense. We use the present simple tense to talk about habitual actions in the present, etc., etc. So that's the second meaning of grammar. Now, moving on, let's look at if we all know grammar. Well, the answer is simple, we do. Because we all speak to one another and all understand one another. We couldn't do that if we didn't use the same language system. In other words, we all use the same patterns in language to say what we want to communicate. 2-year-olds know grammar, 10-year-olds know grammar, 50-year-olds know grammar. We all know grammar and use it constantly. What I mean is we know it unconsciously. What we may not know is the terms used to describe the grammar we use. It's a bit like, for instance, someone who knows how to play football but doesn't know how to explain the moves, techniques, and tactics he uses to do so. Basically, all of us have an unconscious knowledge of grammar.
Grammar focus. Exercise 4, page 88.
I'm preparing a talk to give to my classmates about our history project. The talk is on Friday, and I've never given a talk to an audience before. I'm pretty nervous about it, but I'm sure they'll be interested because it's a really good project. Let me tell you what it's about, and maybe you can give me some help. I've planned the first part. I'm going to start with a general description of the project, its aims and how we collected our data. Then I think I'll show them some PowerPoint slides of Hadrian's Wall and ask them what they know about it. Asking them questions will involve them a bit and hopefully get their interest. I expect they won't know much at all because they've been investigating other things. After that, I'll show them a picture of our project group. It's a great group and we've worked well together. I'm okay with this bit, and my teacher said to use plenty of eye contact and remember my body language. What I think I'll do next in the presentation is tell them all about the wall, why it was built, how long it is, and that kind of thing. I expect they'll enjoy that, as most of the group are interested in history. In fact, the whole class is going to go to Hadrian's Wall sometime next month, so my talk will give them some background information before we go. I'm really looking forward to that trip, and I'm sure we'll have a great time. Anyway, it's not the content of the talk that worries me, it's the delivery. The thing is, my PowerPoint skills are a bit limited, and as you can see, I'm never going to finish it on time at this rate. It takes me ages to put it together. You're good at PowerPoint. Do you think you can help me a bit this evening? Tell you what, I'll make you an offer. If you come round at 7 o'clock, we can work on it for an hour or so, and then I'll order a pizza. Then we can relax and watch the next episode of Spooks, which starts at 9 o'clock. What do you think?
Exam focus, page 89.
Good morning. My name's Professor Andrea Hull, and I'm here today to talk to you about the impact exercise has on stimulating the brain and on mental ability. In particular, I want to tell you about some recent research in this area. We've long known there was a connection between running and other aerobic exercise and brain power. But before this research, we hadn't understood how or why. Let me tell you about the research and its findings. The researchers studied 2 groups of mice. One of the groups had as much access to a running wheel as they wanted. The other mice formed a control group. The researchers gave all the mice a brief training session. They put them in front of a computer screen that displayed 2 identical squares side by side. If they nudged the one on the left with their nose, they received some sugar as a reward. If they nudged the one on the right, they got nothing. After they'd been trained, the mice went on to do a memory test. The more they nudged the correct square, the better they scored. At the start of the test, the squares were 30 centimetres apart, but got closer and closer together until they were almost touching. This part of the experiment was designed to test how good the mice were at separating 2 very similar memories. You could think of the human equivalent as being something like a person remembering what they had for dinner yesterday and the day before, or where they parked on different trips to the supermarket. Anyway, the running mice clocked up an average of 15 miles, 24 kilometres that is, a day, and their scores in the memory test were nearly twice as high as those of the control group, especially when the 2 squares were so close they nearly touched. As you can probably imagine, at this stage of the experiment, the 2 memories the mice were forming of the squares were very similar. But it was when they had to distinguish between the 2 that these new brain cells really made a difference. What happened was that the mice that had had less exercise got steadily worse at the test because their memories became too similar to separate. So, to sum up, what we've seen is that the group of mice that had more exercise was much better able to form distinct memories. But at this stage, it wasn't clear why this was the case. So the researchers then did some laboratory analysis and found that brain tissue taken from the mice showed that the running mice had grown fresh grey matter during the experiment. In fact, on average, there were 6,000 new brain cells in every cubic millimetre of the region of the brain linked to the formation and recollection of memories. Right, we're running out of time, I'm afraid. I'd better stop. If you'd like to ask me any questions about this research or read up more about it, here are some web addresses for you.